There we go.
The ultimate fishing experience is brought to you by Lund Boats. This week on the ultimate fishing experience, we're going big. Big waters for big smallmouth bass, that is. The populations of smallmouth have exploded in recent years all across North America. Many lakes, rivers, and reservoirs inhabited by smallies have seen their numbers increase both in quantity and quality. But where do you find the biggest populations of true giants? You need to head to massive bodies of water. Erie, Green Bay, St. Clair of the Great Lakes, Lake Champlain, or Mille Lacs, inland sea of their own right. These are just a few places that big bass roam. We join James and Troy Lindner explaining their tactics for finding and catching big water bass.
Oh boy, look at that. That's a big one. That's a whopper.
So it's time to power up the GPS, strap the rods down tight, and head out to where the water meets the horizon.
Right now, Troy Lindner and I are going to go do one of our absolute favorite things, and that's targeting brown bass, specifically on big water. Today, North American bass angling is better than it's ever been before.
Yeah, we fish across the United States, all over Canada. It seems like in the lakes, rivers, and reservoirs, there's more opportunity to catch bigger smallmouth, like James said, than ever before.
We happen to be blessed right next door, 15 miles away. Where we're going today is Mille Lacs Lake,
Yeah.
Lake Erie, Lake Sinclair, Lake Champlain.
It's amazing the carrying capacity that big lakes, big reservoirs, rivers have for big fish. Big numbers and big fish, two things I like when it comes to smallmouth bass. The weather's pretty good. I like it.
It really
the wind
should
is
be
not. We don't have rain and we don't have wind, but we have the nice low light conditions.
Low pressure.
Yeah.
I like that too.
Except the high pressure's on you to pick good spots.
That's a mystery. That's one thing that's sort of interesting. You go to these really big bodies of water and you can use a lot of different techniques. In a big lake like this, there's always some shallow water fish, mid-range, and deep water fish. Right now, it's the first week of September. We're banking that the majority of the fish are actually set up on these deep main lake points. We're talking big schools of fish, so that's where we're gonna start out. Anywhere between probably 15 and about 20 foot of water, the tips of points, and some sunken humps. A lot of times, so many people have a tendency to want to fish right away. Rather than using your electronics to its full potential, you spend a little bit of time looking at the habitats available, because a lot of times that'll really be able to really speed the fish finding processes. And here, look at the size of that one, and you can see there's fish right there.
Yeah.
The fish are sitting right on the boulders. They're actually laying right inside of them, and you can see a really good, big boulder line right here. That's the edge of that one. We'll put a mark on that. That's the crest of it. You know, one thing about particularly more deeper water smallmouths, they can be extraordinarily moody. You know, a lot of times you fish for smallmouth bass with aggressive presentation strategies, top water, jerk baits, crankbaits, spinner baits, high-speed reactionary baits. When you get out to this deep water environment, it's sort of interesting to me, because when you look at the spectrum of baits that we have on the deck, none of those baits. They're almost all bottom dragging and very, very slow, more finesse presentations. They really are. It's actually, These fish can be really moody. It almost seems like to me that smallmouths almost turn into walleyes when they get out in deep water. You can be fishing around a lot of them and they can be sort of hard to catch.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Even with like a little boot tail like this, if I'm up shallow, I'm kind of casting and reeling it fast. Out here, I'm casting out, letting it sink in the bottom, and I'll either pop it up and down like that, or it's a real slow, so it's just crawling over, hitting each rock like that. And if I'm up a little bit shallower, a lot of times you just burn it. I'm just covering water with it. There we go. Oh. It's either running at me, it's either really small or it's just running at me. I shouldn't be able to move it. Oh, there.
I know that was that other one. That's the exact same thing. Then all of a sudden,
you just pick it up, and then all of a sudden it just kind of stops. I'm like, all right, really thump it. Oh, little guy.
Oh, what?
There we go. Got it. That's a really big one right there. Look at that. Wow. Now we're talking. Just a nice little single hook. Pop it out, just like that, nice and easy. Look at that fish. Beautiful. When you fish big waters, this is the type of fish that you can expect to catch.
I don't know how many fish are on this point, but there's literally a lot of them. A lot of them.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Mercury Marine. Go boldly.
No, any of these really big bodies of water are very, very complex. They're very multi-layered. What I mean by that, structurally, you have a very big 4 to 5 foot shallow humps. You have 8 to 10 foot level, 15 to 20, 25 to 30 foot in this particular lake. And one of the biggest things is actually spending the time to go find the fish. We've actually been out on this lake over the last couple of weeks and identifying some specific locations where these fish are really drained off on these big main lake points. But the thing is these fish can move pretty dramatically, you know, based on the food and the forage the fish are feeding on. In this particular lake, they have crayfish, you have spot-tailed shiners, you have tullibees. And so these fish sort of graze around on these big structures. So it takes some amount of time to figure out where the fish are, but once you identify and you put the time in, you can find incredible schools of fish. It really is. And right now, because of the time frame, they're sort of gathered together not only by species, but size. That's one thing. They're sort of tuned up. All the big boys, the fish that are out on these key spots, they're not alone. You catch one big one, there's probably several more in that, right in that exact vicinity.
That felt like a fish. Almost feels, little guy.
Initially moving, and then all of a sudden when you get tight on them, then
it just like stops.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a nice walleye. My good walleye skills.
I don't think that's a walleye.
No.
His head bouncing. Yeah. I suspect that's Mr. Brown.
Yeah. This might be like the last one. I always joke, I kind of joke that they're small. When you get those 5-pounders that they're small, because you see them up to 7 pounds. You see numbers of fish that 6 to 7 pound range caught out here. Yeah, it's just a little 4 something. Yeah. And this one just has a little bit more attitude, I think. They all have.
What pound test are you running?
I beefed up to a 5-pound test.
Well, nice.
Oh, it's a little guy. Relatively speaking, still. Look at that one. Nice, really. He got a little bump in his head. Really, I might need pliers on this one just to pop it out. Beautiful fish. There we go. Get her back and get another one. You know, that fish hit pretty far, you know, almost at the end of my cast, and that's what we haven't caught any of the fish that we've marked, right underneath the boat. So we're coming over these fish, pulling up ahead. And the last 2 fish that I've had hit have hit way out there at the end of the cast, same with James. So that's one thing. When you mark them, you can pull off, pull away from them, and then make really long casts and work them from a distance.
And there's a couple of different boat control strategy we use. One is dragging and drifting. The other one is making a really long cast and moving along. And then with this new motor I got here, I got the Minn Ultrex, and it has a fabulous feature on there. It's called Spot Lock. And what Spot Lock is, it's got a GPS in the head of the trolling motor, and I hit the anchor button on my foot control and it holds the boat. As soon as I caught our first fish, I hit that button. Since that point in time, Troy's caught 2 fish sitting in this one position. I'm just holding the boat exactly right here. And the thing is, what's really interesting, even in big wave conditions, it's really cool because I'm moving along, I catch a fish, I hit the Spot Lock, you know, you hook, land the fish, put them in the live well, you come back up to the front of the boat. You're in the exact same position where I caught the last fish. You haven't blown away from that spot. We've been fishing this technique like dragging for a long, long time. I got an interesting story for you. I was fishing a tournament up on Lake of the Woods. I was fishing with one of my tournament partners. His name was Ted Capra. At that point in time, Ted was actually in the process of the first time that underwater cameras were coming to market. And it was interesting that throughout the 3-day period, Ted never practiced. All he did was look with the underwater camera. But we found these ledge drops where these boulders transitioned down and then it would break into sand. And it was really interesting because I'd catch some fish and Ted says, yep, there's a lot more down here off the base of the drop, you know, out in deeper water every time I'd catch one casting shallow. To make a long story short, we ended up winning that tournament by fishing out in deeper water than everybody else was by doing this exact same thing. And since that point in time, I've used it all over, from the Great Lakes to the out western lakes to the Canadian lakes, you know, all over with really a lot of success, experimenting with different baits, tubes, you know, paddle-tailed grubs. It works with a lot of different soft plastic.
That felt like a fish right there. It's not bad. How about that one?
There you go. That's a real one.
There we go.
You got the technique. It's known as dragging.
It's not bad.
It's another horsey. Okay, I'll get it.
All right, you gonna net this one?
They really seem like they prefer the little booty. Come here, buddy.
Oh. There we go. Nice job. There we go.
It's a whopper.
But that one, and then it's just out like that. How about that one? Look at that. And that thing, it wasn't even hooked. It was just like pressure. You just keep the pressure on there. Yeah, the hook just popped out. Beautiful fish. Look at that thing. All right, let's get her back in the water. And that one felt a little bit different. When I lifted up, it felt like I was snagged. And I was snagged into a big smallmouth.
One thing you'll notice, I'll really launch the bait out there and let it sink down to the bottom. And one thing that's really important for this situation is to fish with braided line. This is Suffolk's 10-pound test, 832 braid with like a 4-foot shank of fluorocarbon, 10-pound test or 8-pound test fluorocarbon that leads to the tube. The reason why you want braid, a lot of times when you consider where we're at, I made a long cast, let it sink down, that bait is a long ways away from the boat. With monofilament, you don't have the feel and the control. This braid, the non-stretch feature of the braid is really important to feel not only the bottom composition, how the bait is moving, but once you hook the fish out on the end of the cast, and a lot of times they could be way out there, and that's what's really critical, that non-stretch.
And some of the baits are actually presented better at light line. When you try to throw bigger, you know, smaller jigs at light line, actually gives it a much more natural action. And I built the confidence up just, you know, having to fish really light in the West, and it has reaped dividends across North America when I've taken those same finesse tactics and applied them to bigger bodies of water where you don't normally think finesse fishing.
Oop, there's one. Oh, Bubba, I got me one.
It's coming up.
I really like setting the hook on them big boys with braid.
Yeah,
you go set the hook and it goes dunk.
Oh, there you go.
Look at that little
That's
whopper.
not bad.
Yeah, come here, buddy.
Good one.
Oh, come here, buddy. smallmouths, it's sort of interesting that they calm down. Well, that's if you can get a little grip on them. The thing is, he's not hooked at all either. He's, there we go. Oh gosh, look how I had him hooked too.
Oh my God.
Just by the hair of his rinny chin. Look at that. There we go. Beautiful bass, aren't they? It's really, really fun fishing. You can see why this is probably one of our favorite activities when it comes to fishing, is fishing for these guys here. They're fabulous fish to hunt on these big waters. We'll get her back in the water. Come here, buddy. There we go. Back to the depths. You know, electronics is a big part of any fishing situation you face on the water, and it really becomes vitally important when you get to these big waters. Number one, the first tool I use probably the most is the map. You know, today's mapping programs, they actually have high resolution maps. It enables you, once you actually start catching fish in a given depth, for example, we're catching them on points that are 15 to 20 foot of water, I can go quickly identify other spots that resemble this particular location. Here you got another, same thing, another 19-foot hard bottom extension. So that's what's really critical initially is the mapping program. You'll notice I have a bunch of coordinates on this particular map. What I'll do is drive around it and use side imagery a lot. In this particular case, we have a lot of big boulders in here, and I'll actually put down the coordinates to identify those specific big rocks. On this particular flat, there's probably, you know, hundreds of these really giant rocks, and a lot of times these fish really gravitate to those areas. Here you can see, look at that there. There's a really nice big boulder pile right there. We'll mark that. There you go. That boulder is transposed onto my map. Electronics today really speeds the fish finding process. You know, there's a lot of units on the market. You have you know, 2D sonar, which is here. You have mapping program and side imagery are the three different features that I use the most when I'm on the water. Okay, you got any more big ones back there yet? Oh, he does. Look at that. Look at that, see?
Let's be quiet. Do you have the net? Where's your net? Where's your extendo net?
Yeah, see, we got it really wired in. The thing is, you know, you're talking, you know, the utilizations with this electronics. Once we've identified where the fish are at, the mood the fish are in, we're using not only our trolling motor on how to present the baits to the fish. It's very, very slow. You know, you were driving back and forth over the fish and you couldn't catch them. We started dragging, really controlled speed, very, very slow, 0.3 miles an hour. We've been catching fish pretty much back to back once we've identified where the fish were sitting.
Yeah, and spotlight, we're both kind of in the back center of the boat here, which is nice because it's like taloning in deep water.
Yeah.
I don't know the size of this one. I mean, it's
like
big.
Come here,
right,
come here, you
big.
look.
That's a. She just swim when they get big like that.
Oh boy, look at that. That's a big one. That's a whopper.
Oh
That
my
is.
God.
That's a 6 pound plus. That's what we're talking about.
Like,
look at that.
I'm gonna do the slow lift for dramatic.
Look at that thing. Yeah.
Look at that.
Oh boy, he's a tank and a half.
Yeah, look at the hook. Let's see if it. Look at that. It was completely just a pressure, just barely in the corner like that, and that's why you just keep that pressure on the fish.
Boy,
like
that's a big.
Wow! Look at that beast.
Troy, put that one in the live well.
Yeah.
We got to take some pictures of
Yeah.
something. I got to get the still camera out
Look
for
at
that
that.
guy there.
Look at that. Toad City.
You know, the 2075 Pro Bass is a fabulous big water bass boat. But what I'd like to do is walk you through the boat and actually show you the different compartments. This thing has just amazing amount of room, and it's extraordinarily well laid out for really hardcore fishermen. This compartment I always use for soft baits, but that's the way I got this stuff organized. Going over to the other side here, I got my crankbaits based on the depth spectrum, spinner baits, jump baits, topwater baits, anything that you'd possibly need. Here, this is probably one of the largest rod lockers in the industry today. This rod locker will take 15 rods, anywhere from 8, 9, and 10 foot in length. The other thing that this is an all aluminum deck. There's no wood in here. The thing that's really nice is these jump seats. As you see here, what you can actually do is have 4 people in this boat, which is really, really nice. The live well, we got some big brownies. You know, one thing about the Lund live wells, they really have a very good live well system. It can handle a lot of fish. It's very big. This is a deep thing. You can handle a lot of fish. But one of the most important things is the hull design on this boat, and this is the IPS-2 hull. So what it enables you to do is garner stability, but not only stability is how the boat handles in big seas. They're built for big water.
This 2075 Pro V Bass is matched with Mercury's 250 Pro XS and propped with a 23-pitched Tempest Plus. This enables me to raise the front of this boat up and out of the water, reducing the amount of hull on the surface of the water, which translate into having less drag, better speed, and performance. It's interesting to note that during the 5 hours that Troy and I fished this 132,000-acre lake, we never left an area of approximately 1 acre. Yet we caught over 14 smallmouths on this minute portion of this massive lake. This is not uncommon on big bodies of water containing schools of smallmouth.
Just another 4-pounder.
Yeah.
The trick is finding that 1 acre that provides the necessary food and habitat to hold them. I can't overemphasize how critical good electronics are in helping you find these fish holding spots, plus the boat control necessary to stay on them, and finally, let the fish tell you what they're willing to bite. We started fishing vertically to entice fish we marked on the Hummingbird. We couldn't get them to go. Not until we started casting our baits a long distance away from the boat could we trigger them. By putting all these elements together, we had a great day on the water.
But this actually represents just a few of the fish that we caught today and is available in so many of these big waters across North America. It's absolutely just stunning, the average size of the fish that are there.
Yeah.
You got to get these guys back in the water. It really is.
Couple
It really
photos
is.
and we'll get them back.
In the
Keep 'em
water.
healthy.
Beautiful
Yep.
fish.
Thanks for joining us. If you'd like more information, check out lundboats.com or these other online outlets.